All right. Kingdom Rod of Iron 14. Now, all you folks know, this whole week has been crazy because we had, was it last Sunday? It was last Sunday, wasn't it? We had Schlausen Production Company. Big time company. They do documentaries for A&E, Showtime, Netflix, etc. You see the type of equipment they came out and brought here? There's like $100,000 camera. They brought a $100,000 camera. They had like 20 people here on staff. I mean, each one of those people getting paid $500 to $1,000 a day. All right, and then they got the lighting and all those crazy stuff. It was like $1 million on this stage. They brought a huge production team down here. Okay, and they brought one of the the liberal interviewers trying to throw me off. You can't throw the Second King off. Come on, you can't throw me off. Trying to bait me into stupid questions. Give me a break. I am no fool. You understand? Goodness. What? It was so ridiculous. Anyways, you could tell, wow, it's amazing. Apparently she's some kind of famous interviewer person. And, I haven't seen her. Tim said he's seen her a lot, right? On different news broadcasts and stuff? News magazines, okay. And then, of course, after that, we had Washington Post. The Washington Compost, there you go. Working with the CIA and $600 million. Gosh, boy, these numbers translating back and forth in Korean is driving me nuts, man. Screws up my English too. You know what I mean? The numbers are crazy when you're translating back and forth. Totally insane. But $600 million contract with the CIA. These guys are completely in bed with the CIA. Anyways, totally deep state people, but they came out again. They sent up their camera crew. It was one guy, but tons of camera stuff. They shot us in the ninjas training, and then some BJJ training, and then doing the tire flipping and all the CrossFit training. And then they came again in the morning for King's Report to take photos of the studio. I mean, he was taking pictures of all my desk, everything, my little, he was taking pictures of everything. Like, what a weirdo. Anyways. Then they set up like these, different shoots outside. We had to do different shoots. They wanted the crown, they wanted the golden rod of iron, etc. And so they took some nice pictures. But just don't be fooled. It's gonna be a slam job. You understand? These people are 100% commies. So it's going to be a slam job like they always do. You got to always that's how media works. They're the nicest to you. They're so nice. They're so nice. Oh, could you do? Oh, thank you so much. It's beautiful. Whatever, you know what I mean? And then they're right. He trains a military compound, training groups of terrorists and children of 15, 13 years old training firearms and ready to be revolutionaries that take over this country. They're crazy. They're nuts. That's how they are. That's how they are. You got to understand the way, the character of the beast. The character of the beast. It will woo you. It will, try to bamboozle you with its power and its glory. The Bible says when the beasts appear out of the earth, that people actually worship them. They're given power by Satan, by the dragon, and then people actually worship the beast. And you can see that with the deep state, with this infrastructure that they're creating, with all these black ops organizations within these shadow governments that are ruling, this permanent ruling class that is above all these politicians, etc. They are completely worshipped by these people. It's a total cult. It's a total cult, and it's like amazing, just like all the psychopaths just converge into this, non-transparent shadow government. You know what I mean? It's so, and they're a big apparatus. Washington Post is a big apparatus within that. They work exactly, they are, the president the owner is the head of Amazon. And of course, he's a total enemy to you and your family, an enemy to anybody who wants to be free, and total enemy to sovereignty. Freedom, the ability for self-defense for normal folk. What I'm saying? He gets everything. Total totalitarian authoritarians. Total wicked political scenes. Okay, so don't be fooled These guys are not here to do a nice piece on it. But this is what they don't understand in the internet age. All publicity is good publicity. So they try to slam job us. They try to mock us and say we're crazy and all this. And they promote it. And they have it on the cover of their magazines and in their little newspapers, which are failing and collapsing. And only the real cultists are really reading them. I mean, the millennials don't look at Washington Post. Young people don't look at CNN. Nobody reads CNN. I mean, under 40, right? Or under maybe 45. I mean, hardly anybody watches CNN under that age group, right? So it's completely dead. It's like they're thrashing because it's like their death throes. They're still wanting to be relevant, pretending that they're still powerful because they can still steal government money and through taxation. But they're dying. They're totally dead. So their ideas of their self-relevance is so pathetic. So the more they try to slam us, the more publicity it gives us, and people can actually just click on a YouTube channel. They can just watch for themselves what we say. And we're not actually that crazy. We're not crazy at all. You'll see that if you listen, we make a lot of sense, okay? We make sense. So, it's been nuts. They want to send now their video team to film us, We don't know what they want to film, but they want to. They're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars, thousands of dollars into this article. They're doing quite a big piece on us. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy. But apparently they'll send their video team. We're kind. We're nice to them. We have nothing to hide. We're completely doing everything legal. We are training our people to be empowered. You know what I mean? And it's hard for them to attack. Especially, one of the interviewers. So is everything here like a patriarchy? Is the wife has to do what the husband says, right? I said, my wife is a very dangerous and empowered woman. You understand? The queen. That's how we train. We train together, so our spouses are strong and they're deadly. You know what I mean? And I said, hey, look, the Bible says love and respect. And then we got into a whole discussion about love and respect with this lady. She couldn't say anything. She couldn't say anything. I mean, how can you? That thing is so blasé. That's so blah. Trying to say, walking here, oh, you're a patriarch. We got so many girls that are like training and they're empowered. You know what I mean? We have probably one of the biggest girl communities for training these kind of combat arts. You'll be hard pressed to find other places that have this many young ladies who are training these kind of hard arts because they're not easy. They're not easy at all. It takes a lot of emotional and mental fortitude to get through this stuff because it's so depressing. Sometimes you get beat up constantly. But it's so absurd when they try to come and play that game. Absolutely ridiculous. But we can see, of course, wherever the kingdom gospel is preached, it upsets people. It really does. It really upsets people. We're going to see that again in Mark 15. And of course, this is the scene where it upset the hierarchy and the establishment so much, the deep state, because the Pharisees, we have to understand, were part of the deep state. They were like the intelligence agency for the Jews. So let's say they were like a little department of the CIA, that are specifically for the Jews, to keep the Jews in line. Just like they'll have Al Sharpton to keep the black communities in line, or, Jesse Jackson to keep the black community, they work directly with the CIA. I mean, Al Sharpton has openly said he's worked with the FBI in doing, quote, drug busts. That guy is totally connected in. And they'll use people of the same race to keep that community oppressed and in the plantation and under the hierarchical control. So there's, whether it's Al Sharpton or whether it's the Pharisees, they're operating the same way. And we can see wherever Christ started preaching the gospel of the kingdom, he started upsetting that entire narrative. It started upsetting the entire structure that they were creating. We can see that Pharisees hated him so much. Of course, they're calling for his death. And eventually they get the Romans to say, okay, fine, we're going to kill him. And of course, Jesus ends up on the cross and he dies here. This is the scene where Christ is killed. One of the soldiers ran, filled a sponge full of vinegar, put it on a reed and gave it to him, drink, saying, let alone this, after he was stabbed, right, by the spear in the heart, which is the killing blow to make sure that the person is dead on the cross, right? The soldier will come in, boom, right up to the ribs, into the heart, boom, and stop the heart. And this is the scene here And Jesus cried with a loud voice and gave up the ghost. He gave up the ghost. He cried out and gave up the ghost. And the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, fulfilling prophecy again. And when the centurion, which stood over against him, saw that, he so cried out and gave up the ghost. He said, truly this man was a son of God. Immediately they recognized that they had done something wrong. They knew that this man was different. There were also women looking on afar off, among whom was Mary Magdalene, and Mary the mother of James, the less, and of Joseph, and Salome, who also when he was in Galilee followed him and ministered unto him, and many other women which came up with him unto Jerusalem. And now when the even was come, or the evening had come, because it was the preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph, of Arimathea, an honorable counselor, which also waited for the kingdom of God, came and went in boldly unto Pilate and craved the body of Christ. Okay, so we see here, the kingdom scripture here is referring to Joseph of Arimathea, who is a rich man. He's a wealthy man. What's interesting here is that the kingdom gospel does resonate across socioeconomic status. It doesn't only apply to the poor. Of course, there's the poor that get tremendous strength from hearing the gospel preached. And then, of course, we know that early Christianity burgeoned, expanded very quickly amongst this enslavement classes, slaves, servants, etc. But there are also people across the strata of society, like Joseph of Arimathea, like different people who encountered Jesus, even soldiers, right? Centurions who encountered Christ, across all, and they're part of the deep state. They're part of the oppressing force of the world. But the gospel of Christ appeals to them because they may be acting out the sociopathic sort of aims, but in their hearts they're not psychopathic. They're operating in a system where in order to get ahead, they've been told and brainwashed that they have to buy into the system, become part of this in-group, and then they can succeed. You look at Korea, you look at Japan, it's kind of like that too. Look at the left in America, it's totally like that. It's a cult. But there are people who have a yearning for something other than that totalitarian, authoritarian political Satanism, that know that in the end this is wrong, and know that this is evil. And so we have people even in the deep state in America as well, even though it's so corrupt and it's at the top, it's rancid. But there are good people who do leaking. They leak to Breitbart, they leak to InfoWars, they leak to alternative news. They do good things to try to expose what's happening. And to stop, for example, if the government is going to try to do a false flag attack, right? They're going to try to leak, the good people are going to try to leak it so that before it happens, the public knows about it and they're awaiting it, they're waiting for it. So we see that the gospel of the kingdom does cross across socioeconomic strata. And we also see that in those graphs that we showed maybe a couple months back, but breaking up society not in terms of how the left breaks it down, black versus white, rich versus poor. That's not the proper breakdown. Because you could have predators who are white, you could have predators who are Asian, you could have predators that are black, you could have predators that are Hispanic. It doesn't matter what race you are, you can still have a population of any population that will be predatory, who will be psychopathic, right? Psychologists say up to 5-10% people have psychopathic tendencies. And maybe, less than 1% will they'll act them out, doing mass shootings or crazy stuff like that. But there is the tendency to crave power, right? Coupled with a large part of the population that if it's in their incentive, they will go along with evil. They will do it. They will do it. And this is a scary thing about power, that because when you say, for example, if we lived in Germany during the time of the Nazis, and we don't have any of this, 50, 60 years of understanding how evil that was. And we're in it, and just slowly it's becoming more and more centralized, etc. You would know people who work in the government. You would know people who are law enforcement. You would know people who in a couple of years will be at your door shipping you off to death camps to kill you. You would know them. But in your mind, you would think, no, they would never do something like that. That's kind of crazy, you know what I mean? They're so nice. I mean, I know their wife. I know Carl's wife. I know his, you know what I mean, or his children, or you know what I mean. I know Michael's wife. Right? You would know these people. So in your mind, you would think, no, that can never happen here in Germany because we're modern. We have technology. We have airplanes. Etc. You got to put yourself back in those shoes. In the same way here, there is a deep state which is totally creating a mutiny against President Trump right now, that is trying to go against, that is trying to brainwash him, politically assassinate him, that is trying to tear him down, that is trying to make him into a neocon and start useless, crazy, interminable, that means endless wars that we're just constantly fighting, which of course collapsed the Roman Empire. Just endless war and exploitation. But there are good people in the deep state community. That doesn't mean that's 90%. I mean, Joel Skousen, in that interview with Alex Jones that I showed a couple weeks ago, he was saying maybe it's, we don't know, 50-50. It could be 60%. It could be 30% that would resist it. Maybe 60% of the deep state would follow the order to put gun owners and evangelical Christians into death camps. Maybe 40%. We don't know. It's a proportion. But it's people usually say, who are in the military, they'll say, oh, it's like 5-10%. I don't know about that. When you can squeeze them, you squeeze their future careers, you squeeze their, you know what I mean, squeeze their pensions, you squeeze, oh, you do this, you'll lose everything. Oh, you do this. I mean, people give so quick. Oh, I got to think of my wife. I got to think of my kids. I can't let them go starving, and I am just following the order, following the law. I'm just trying to follow the law. You see what I mean? And people do it. It's very hard actually to be politically present in the moment, understand an evil authoritarian system coming over you, and then realize, whoa, I got to stand up against it. That's a very rare mind, actually. Especially when it's slow. What was that? 95% in Weimar Germany, in Nazi Germany? Oh, in your opinion? Okay, well, Pierre says 95%. We're probably, well, he's European. He may know, okay? That's what happens in Europe. Okay? So you do have a population of good people. But the problem with the centralized form of political Satanism is that it magnetizes people who are lusting for power and using that power for the exploitation of others to get resources. That's the problem. It's like a magnet for parasites. It's a magnet for wicked people. Even though they dress nicely in suits and they're in their little elitist, Washington, D.C., going to little, Park Avenue Starbucks or whatever. They're still wretched and rancidly evil inside. They have no qualms about killing you and your family and get rid of the bitter clingers and flyover country and all those Second Amendment crazy gun lovers and all those crazy Christians who believe in mythology that like Thor and Zeus. That's what they say, right? So we see that what the gospel can touch is not going to be just along those class dividing lines that Marx delineated or the culture Marxists want to delineate. It more touches people who have a heart or people who don't, who lost their heart by selling their soul to power. Right? People who have been psychopathic or have psychopathic tendencies, now they say, I'm going to enact on, I'm going to join this cabal so I can get more power. Or sociopaths who do the same for a little pension. Okay, I have no problem being a B or C man to this power structure, elitist power structure, the Bilderberg Group, to the George Soros, etc., as long as I get my money. And I can enjoy, 5-star restaurant food quality and, have Starbucks, every day. I mean, people are like motivated by very, very small things, you know what I'm saying? Go do a little shopping, spend a couple $1,000, a month on shopping. You know what I mean? You get a little nice, little foods and, you know what I mean? Get your little Starbucks. From the deep state, they'll do it. So really, society is divided up by who is going to be psychopathic, who's not going to be psychopathic. Whether you can be in a low economic strata, but you can still be psychopathic. You could be in the middle economic strata, and still they're psychopaths. You can be in upper echelon, they're psychopaths. Look at Jeff Bezos. Look at that guy, that robotic, two-eyed, two-faced. The guy has eyes that look like they face two different directions. He's got this maniacal laugh. He walks around with dog robots that can tear your head off. The guy is a nut. He's crazy. So you got really psychopathic people at the top too, but it's not only at the top. It goes all through the strata, and they kind of, it's almost like a species. They're kind of like putting out signals and pheromones to attract their same, species. Hyenas, converge so we can take this over. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's so insane. But we can see that when the gospel is preached, it is so disruptive because the gospel of the kingdom is talking about a kingdom that will come, that will supplant and replace the kingdom of authoritarianism and totalitarianism that all of human history, continually in cycles of oppression and suffering, have experienced over and over again. And they keep on falling into the same old trap over and over and over again. And it's amazing. It's like watching a slow car accident happening every single generation. It's like, it's a disaster. So, when the kingdom is preached, it does upset the ruling class. It does upset the other classes. Now, I want to show a video which is brilliant. Of course, everybody knows that I like this philosopher, even though he's an atheist, but he's very, very, very appreciative of Christian culture. Let's put it that way. But this is one of his most famous documentary pieces. Let's look at this real quick. And that is Stefan Molyneux. Wasn't that amazing? You notice his one point, he's talking about, how, of course, if you listen to his podcast, you can see how he breaks down so intelligently why the state is, in his words, basically Satan. Okay? And he's so much more positive about Christianity because he was saying, of course, he doesn't like Christianity that colludes with the state. But he's saying, look, with Christianity, because the left and the indoctrination camps of the young people in the public schools, they'll teach them, it's the religions that keep you oppressed and your minds stop to be, can't be allowed to be freed, or it's traditional values, or it's your parents are keeping you traditional, right? Right? But notice they'll never say anything about the state. Never say anything about the state. When the state, when it has power, is something so much more evil that will control you, that will take your property, that will surveil you, that will exploit you, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, you're going to prison or you will die. So it's almost, and of course we see there are forms of religion, for example, like radical Islam, that is a political system tied in with a theocracy. That's a very, obviously that leads to totalitarianism. Did you notice what he said in the beginning? He said, some people confuse it because they see the state provides health care, provides water, safe water, food, but also farmers provide their animals health care, medicine, water, and food. Isn't that incredible? But think about it. Think about it, all these young people here. When did these young people ever hear this? Will they ever hear this in a public school or in a college? You will never hear this. Because as he pointed out, the colleges and the institutions of education are a part of the control of the farming. And they're, of course, dependent on the state. Like all the colleges are dependent now, predominantly in the U.S., upon federal grant money. They want that money. Send us that money. We'll collude with the government, allow it to be the immoral power that steals from people, that plays these little tricks, that subdivides our land, or that allows us to feel that we're free because we could choose our occupation, but really the more successful you become, the more they steal from you. And it only goes up and up. It doesn't stay the same. Income tax, you start at 1%, less than 1%, like 1%. Now it's what? I mean, some people are paying up to 60% of their income in the United States. You see this? It's the state. It's that system where the centralized power that killed Jesus Christ, persecuted him, hunted him. Same thing that hunted True Father down. Whatever country he was in, it was the state that constantly persecuted him. And of course, many of the types of state Christians that were, churches that were run by the state, but basically as front groups to organize people and keep them under control, like Al Sharpton, under a political fascist or political central model. To basically become like the Joel Osteen churches, or these churches that just teach a communist Jesus. They hated that he was imprisoned by North Korean government, South Korean government, Japanese government, and the American government. Wherever he went, it is the governments that came after him. Same as Jesus. Wherever they went, they disrupt the structure of centralized power and centralized government. The gospel of the kingdom is so disruptive. It's so, in their minds, so evil because it stops and puts monkey wrenches into their very profitable human farming. The idea that those animals, these livestock, should have proper education, understanding what the farm is, they should understand what these people are trying to do to them, and that they should be armed with AR-15s is crazy to them.